Hello and welcome, everyone. This is the Big Tech, Big Problem podcast. This is our very first episode. Today we look at how tech systems shape what we see and what we believe. We've moved from how algorithms decide the feed to why the scroll is so sticky to how that mix fuels political misinformation, and finally, how podcasts can spread or counter this misinformation.
I think the first and biggest thing that we should talk about is just algorithms, right? And how they're used on these certain platforms to maximize our attention and not really focus so much on accuracy. Recommendation systems, these algorithms, they personalize what we see. They reward high emotion, they narrow exposure over time, and they really just pigeonhole us into what we want to see. This kind of results in divided realities and stressed attention. And so if you guys don't mind, I'm going to give you guys a couple sources that I found that back this up. And we can kind of just have some conversation about that. But the R Street Institute, they kind of went into this first and foremost about how these platforms log clicks. They log your pauses, your reactions, your interactions with posts to predict what keeps you engaged.
I think that's pretty crazy. I'm not going to lie. Social media has become more than just like share something with your friends. It's become something that is, it's a business at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to use all these sort of different practices to, like how you said, they are logging your clicks. They're trying to see your actual engagement on there. They want to see what you are reacting to. And they want to keep you engaged as long as possible. Mm-hmm. And something that, I've heard AJ say before is, like TikTok, they will literally tell you to, stop scrolling. They'll tell you to, go to sleep.
Go touch grass.
Literally, go to sleep,
And I think in this day and age, we've had phones since, junior high, whatever it is. We've been on these apps for years. It's almost common sense or common knowledge that these algorithms exist, that your data is being, or what you're liking, what you're commenting, what you're sharing is, taken into account to create this kind of identity. And even though it is kind of common knowledge, people still don't seem to care.
I think the biggest thing that I've noticed, and that the R Street Institute, what they touch on a little bit, is that these high arousal emotions are what wins over the engagement of users. It's the anger, it's the fear, it's the division, kind of the polarization on these posts are the ones that are those that become more popular.
Humans are driven by conflict. Love. War movies, UFC is one of the biggest sports leagues in the world. It's super popular. Humans just have this innate nature, just driven by fighting conflict.
Kind of what Tanner was saying about how they'll show you go to sleep on TikTok. For one of my articles, they had a little quote said, "Well, when it works, the algorithm is so good." This is about TikTok. And what it sets out to do, that TikTok appears almost overwhelmed by its power. Mm-hmm. Stoll Walker says it's even slipped in the messages to users it thinks are too addicted, saying they should put the phone down. So that's kind of
there's software
crazy.
They know which users are too addicted.
The Georgetown Law Tech Review, they kind of even push this narrative even further and talk about how these recommendations and these algorithms kind of build sort of a filter bubble that really just helps you focus on solely your learning preferences, solely what you want to engage on, and it just reinforces the thoughts that you've already had, which is just kind of crazy.
It's social media has definitely become like an echo chamber for a lot of different ideas out there.
Any niche pocket you want to find.
Something that that we have all learned is, especially with like the article, the feedback loop, is when you're just constantly engaging with certain certain articles or whatever, they're going to keep putting you in this sort of filter bubble, this feedback loop, and reinforcing those ideas over and over again, to where that just becomes your truth, your reality, and that just kind of,
you're in the bubble. You can't explore anymore.
It shapes your whole identity.
We're lucky to be in the generation that's we were right before the iPad kids.
Yeah.
So I think we're a little bit more self-aware, a little more self-conscious about our screen time. I know I'm addicted to my phone. My screen time's 5 hours, 6 hours a day. But I know
YouTube.
Yeah.
Me and YouTube we go back.
We go way back. No, I think it's a big thing that our algorithms are made to feel custom to us. But they, like I said earlier, they just increase the polarization. They further divide us. And it talks about in this article by the Georgetown Law Tech Review that the users are just solely going to be fed what they want to see, which just enforces an endless loop. And what you said too, AJ, just further builds up the screen time and keeps you on there. And
Yeah, kind of my articles and research talk about the scroll trap. But a lot of people just be on their phone for like hours and hours. Like TikTok's whole algorithm is based off like videos you like, or like it changes. They'll have a happy video, sad video, so it just keeps you emotionally engaged. And you'll be on there for like 5 minutes, and you look at the clock, it's like 2 hours later.
Yeah.
That's just how it kind of keeps you hooked on there.
yeah, that's a great point. I think
it's
that-
called doom scrolling.
Doom
Yes.
scrolling.
Yes.
Doom scrolling is what they call it
I've
these
done my
days.
fair share.
Oh, yeah.
I think everyone has.
Yeah, as soon as I get home and I know I have to study, I tell myself Instagram's only going to be for 30 minutes and then it turns into 3 hours.
Oh, after recording, I'll do a
100%.
little bit.
Yeah, and I think that is worsening our mental health, and we don't even know it.
Yeah.
One of my articles goes into that side of things. At the National Library of Medicine, back in an article from last year, they talk about that, how these algorithms that keep you on your phone and on your devices for hours on end, like you were just saying, Tanner, it worsens problems like addiction, and it kind of feeds into that desire to just be satisfied 24/7, and it could just kind of go down a rabbit hole of just
I think it could feed into insecurity too. Let's say you're
For
on
sure.
like, it used to be just a photo sharing app. People would just share their photos and then brag about what vacation they went on or
Mhm.
how good they look, and then people just get these. The comparison is deep.
Yeah.
I don't know this phrase, but you spend hours and hours looking at every single post, comparing yourself to these people that you don't know, you never met, you never talked to them,
yeah.
and you just this insecurity builds, and then
Yeah, you're comparing your regular life with their highlights.
look
Yeah.
at me, I'm just doom scrolling, looking at all these people. And
Mhm.
Yeah, they're showing their highlights of their life, which isn't necessarily the truth.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
They're spreading literal misinformation about their life
Yeah,
and about
that's a
other
good
things.
point.
Like they're, you might see someone who's on this trip to Hawaii or whatever, and they're with their significant other and they're happy, and then next week they get a divorce.
Yeah.
You're just like,
Truly going behind
well, what just happened there?
Yeah.
That's crazy. So
For sure.
We're going to talk heavily about misinformation later in this episode, but
Yeah.
let's keep it moving.
Yeah, I think those are just some big things that we just need to look out for. Apps like TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, they want to keep you there forever.
Mhm. Yeah.
That trap is crazy.
So what kind of I was researching is like the school trap book was what I was talking about. It's just when you're on your phone for like 5 minutes and how TikTok keeps hooked you in, and it's pretty crazy how the algorithm works. They'll do doom scrolling, just keep you on there for 3 hours, and they'll play with your emotions. They'll have like a funny dog video, then they'll have like a sad dog video, and then just keeps your like emotions are all over the board. So
Yeah.
it just kind of keeps you going, and then it's pretty nuts. And then it got so bad where TikTok's got so bad where they're even showing you videos like, oh, go to sleep now, you've been on your phone too long. Like
Yeah.
they want you to regain your rest to get going for the next day, so you can
ignore
scroll.
those.
Yeah,
I
it's
think everyone does. I
Yeah.
set on Instagram. I literally set like a screen timer, like
Uh-huh.
notification,
Oh, that's good.
and I it's for 1 hour, and after an hour, my Instagram will be like, you told yourself you don't want to be on Instagram anymore.
Yeah.
You can it'll either just like quasi block itself, or you can just hit like. It's kind of like when the alarm clock, like the snooze button, you just keep
Yeah.
it going, and
Yeah.
after
for sure.
10 times of hitting snooze, it's actually been another hour and
Yeah.
you overslept.
Yeah.
I do that every day.
I'll watch an hour-long episode of TV, and they're like, all right, I should go to bed. I can't watch another hour worth of TV, and then I'll sit on my phone
Yep.
for about an
Yeah.
hour. Oh, I can watch another episode, but I just sat here doom scrolling for
Yeah.
another hour.
I think that's a scary thing. Not everybody has those reminders on their phones. Not everybody
Yeah.
has
I have
the,
to.
Yeah.
It doesn't work, but I have to.
Uh-huh. Not everybody has the social awareness of understanding how long they've truly been on their phones. And that's another scary thing. I feel like I keep using that word scary, but I think a lot of people, a lot of users, they stay so engaged on their apps for long periods of time that they don't even understand that there is an algorithm doing that to them.
Yeah.
Like they just think, oh, this app
It's
is
normal.
fun. Yeah, this app has what I like.
Yeah.
I like that term users. What other industries use the term users when referring to their customers?
Yeah.
I think of like big tech, and I think of drug dealers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thinking of users like
Yeah.
drug users.
Same
users.
thing, kind of.
Mhm.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
funds of drug. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it
Crazy how like the older generations too, like they haven't grown up with technology like us, but they still get addicted to scrolling. I see my
100%.
dad
Yeah,
get
they're on
like
Facebook for
on
hours.
Facebook for a couple hours, like
Yeah.
scrolling reels. I'm like, he'll send me a bunch of stuff, and it's kind of I can't imagine the younger generation now.
Oh,
Yeah.
they're screwed.
Yeah.
They're screwed.
Yeah.
They're done.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of that, misinformation, let's kind of switch gears here and let's talk about more of like the political realm of misinformation. I have a few things we can kind of go over and talk about together. First one, I found an article, and it kind of talks about how Twitter did a study about the political content that was on their platform, and they found that the algorithm was pushing right-leaning political content. It was amplified more than left-leaning content.
Yeah.
And that was true in most countries that use Twitter.
Yeah, I feel like we've talked about this at one point, but I feel like ever since Elon Musk took over, it's probably even gotten worse.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where, what's the new app that the
Blue
left
Sky?
is? Yeah, Blue Sky.
yeah,
Blue Sky.
So where it's divided the left from the right so drastically that they can't even have the same app to communicate and to kind of mediate their.
There's really like no middle ground app anymore.
No.
Like it's just right, left. Like
Mhm.
there's no even I feel like Facebook's a little like
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's middle ground.
Well, Facebook, you have to be older than 50 to use
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
Just
these apps
kidding.
started as a platform for people to have these online discussions,
yeah.
and then now they're completely separated.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. These apps were first used to connect us
Yeah.
and to kind of like help us share ideas with each
Yeah.
other online. Because if I'm in California and there's somebody on the East Coast who shares these beliefs or shares differing beliefs, I think social media could be a great tool to kind of sharpen each other and to teach each other.
At least hold the conversation.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And now these apps are, like I said earlier, I used the word polarizing. They're driving each other apart, and that's just a dangerous thing that we don't truly understand.
It's kind of crazy too, like realizing I was in Georgia a couple years ago, and I remember my algorithm was totally different on the For You page. So I think
Really?
it saw my location and sent me a bunch of like different videos
Huh.
and stuff.
I think it's
Just from the area you kind of live in, you're
I
like
think your
different.
Google searches will be differentiated.
Yeah.
based on your
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
location.
It's weird.
Yeah, something else, that I kind of found was that political disinformation, like hate speech on social media, is just kind of how we talked about. It's deepened polarization in our lives today more so than ever. I mean, when we look at podcasts or other forms of social media, even if it isn't like inherently political, it's
Like non-political podcasts getting political.
yeah. It's very polarizing for sure.
Yeah.
We have so many different forms of media out there. Podcasts in particular. You have, what they used to be compared to now, which we'll talk about that later. But you have so many flavors of podcasts nowadays that you literally can just go into any of them, and they're talking about politics, and it's just deeply polarizing because they'll be talking about one topic, and they'll have their own opinion about that, even if it's most of the time it's wrong.
Yeah.
And they're just spreading misinformation, and that's that can be a little dangerous, I'm not gonna lie, especially if they're like a popular podcast like Impulsive or something, which
Yeah.
they're trying to be purely entertainment, but
Get those clicks.
they have like 10 million subscribers and very young impressionable people. So,
Yeah.
Which they don't realize.
yeah.
We can talk. We can move a little bit and talk about podcasts themselves because they're a growing outlet for all kinds of discussions. And I have a list here from the podcast host about why they've gained so much popularity in the last 15 years or so. And the content is just easy to access. You can listen to what you want. You can find any niche interest you may care about. And it comes across as a multitask friendly medium. Just they try to say they're not polarizing, but we don't know
Yeah.
how much truth there is to that.
That's
And they kind of build intimacy. I mean, we're just having a discussion here. Any listeners might feel like they're a part of the discussion. We're kind of inviting them into this table, into
Yeah.
this room to speak freely.
Yeah, I think that the familiarization aspect of it is kind of a scary thing.
Yeah.
I feel like I've used that word probably 100 times, but
This is not a fear-mongering podcast.
it's not.
no.
It's not. But it's a good thing to be aware of. Like,
Yeah.
who are you letting speak into your ear so much?
Yeah.
If you just listen to one podcast or one wing podcast, time and time again, or while you're doing the dishes, while you're doing laundry, while you're making food, while you're eating food, that voice is going to seem like maybe a family member to you, somebody that you can just trust, a friend, somebody who you don't necessarily know, but
And they don't know you.
no, they
Yeah.
don't know you, but that voice is familiar to you. It's comfortable to your ear, and it can become a voice that kind of gets a hold of your desires and your heart and kind of craft your mind into thinking a certain way.
And that's the last point here is that podcasts provide an instant community.
Yeah.
They build the communities to engage and grow their listenership.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like just kind of like all the main points. Something that I do want to touch on a little bit is just kind of the overall history of podcasts.
Yeah, they've been around
You
for a
know,
while. Right.
Been around for a long time.
Now they're
Well,
just
they've been around
exponentially
for us a long time.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, like 20 years ago, podcasts were nothing like what they were like
No.
today. 20 years ago, you would get some underground startup podcasts just talking about whatever, and usually sports, whatever,
cars,
very
things,
mainstream.
Yeah.
Popular media,
Yeah.
just
Um,
baseline stuff.
Whereas today, I mean, like I was saying before, everyone and their cousin has a podcast, and they're
Yeah.
talking about whatever. And as we saw most recently, with Joe Rogan, the most popular, I think he's still the most popular podcast. Arguably, that swung the election.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's just the transition of what podcasts have become. Is they've become very, when they first started kind of gaining popularity, it was just, you'd have like a small group of people tuning into someone who they like and talk about sports, whatever, the stock market, whatever,
Yeah.
very
Pop culture. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. But now it's just, everyone has a podcast. It's very, very widely used,
And for the most part, unregulated.
unregulated,
Yeah.
for sure,
And
for
they
sure,
have
yeah,
Millions
Yeah.
of listeners.
exactly.
Mhm.
And it can be out there forever.
I think too, what you talk about, and I feel like we've been very politically focused on this episode so far. And you brought up Trump in that 2024 election. He went on what you could call a podcast tour.
Yeah.
He probably went on 5 or 6 different podcasts,
Yeah.
popular podcasts of audiences that he strategically picked. Like
Yeah.
he knew the target audience of each of those
Yeah.
podcasts.
And
Donald-
not necessarily pushing his policy, saying,
No.
you should vote for me,
Mhm.
but just having discussion about
Yeah.
Exactly. He
the
made
current
it.
day and
Yeah,
age.
you just talk about like golf.
Yeah.
he made himself that familiar voice by coming onto the podcast that people already know and are already familiar
Yeah.
with.
Yeah, I think he definitely won the younger vote by doing that. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
It helped
going
for
on
sure,
like
yeah.
the Aiden Ross podcast,
Yes.
it's just that is 100% tailored towards a younger audience, and he knew that he just like you said, he strategically chose the podcast that
Yeah.
he wanted to.
And then he showed
go
a
on.
certain side of
It's kind of
himself.
like a requirement now to like be on podcasts and
Yeah.
get
Yeah,
famous
in
or
a
like
sense,
run
yeah.
for politics and
Yeah.
all that.
For
Remember
sure.
hearing Harris, she was saying like it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago that she regretted not going on the Rogan podcast and said
Interesting.
That
they
is
wish
very
they figured like
Yeah.
had a better deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
She
think-
didn't go on it. Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting to see this next election in about 2 or 3 years, if this is still a large part or even bigger
Yeah.
of a part of their
It's only
campaigns.
gonna get bigger.
Yeah,
I
you can only
think so.
imagine. Yeah. Unless there's anything else you guys want to speak about on that
No.
topic.
I think we kind of hit the nail on the head with everything.
Yeah.
I mean, we just, using a podcast of our own, creating this sort of podcast, I think was, very fruitful of talking about how podcasts can spread misinformation and
Yeah.
how it can trap us in these loops and how it can
Yeah.
reinforce ideas. And I think it's prudent to kind of expose those sort of, those sort of things, because not everyone, even if you know that it's out there, just spreading awareness about it, it just making it more prevalent.
Yep.
Just
Critical literacy is very important
100%.
in this day.
Mhm.
100%. Just being aware of misinformation just makes you
Having that alarm
Smarter
go
person.
off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
Is this valid? Is this
I-
trying to trick me?
Yeah, I think too, not narrowing down your vision on what you want to intake.
Yeah.
Even if you don't agree with them, listening to other opinions will
Mhm.
strengthen you, which will strengthen us as a public. And so, yeah, just being aware of what you're listening to, understanding that misinformation is there, understanding that algorithms are there to keep you hooked on what you're listening to. And yeah, just take careful steps forward as you go about being on your phone, as you go about listening to podcasts, as you go about listening to other voices. Fact check them, be skeptical, and just really look out for yourself.
Ask questions, have those difficult conversations.
Yeah,
Yeah, don't have tunnel vision. Be
Mhm.
open-minded.
for sure.
I agree.
Yeah,
Anything else you guys want to say? Sweet. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for listening, guys. This is the first episode of our podcast. Hopefully, there's a million more episodes.
yeah. Feel free to drop a comment down below on what you would like us to speak on next.
Thank you to our
TikTok,
sponsors.
we know we said some things about you, but feel free to sponsor us. We do need money. We're broke college students, so send some sponsors our way. But cool. Thanks for listening, guys.
This
Yeah.
has been Big Tech.
Big
Problem.